And I think, he's been pretty open about it and said that, he's not maybe reached the heights under Brendan Rodgers as he did under Ange.
Coming up on the official Celtic FC podcast, we look back on Celtic's impressive 3-1 victory over Kilmarnock, and we debate our greatest ever international Celtic 11s.
This is the official Celtic FC podcast.
Yes, everyone, welcome along to the official Celtic FC podcast, your only Celtic podcast out there for exclusive content from inside the Celtic changing room. I'm Ryan Maher, and today I am joined by Matt Campbell. Matt, welcome. Thank you. And I'm joined by Daylin Docherty. Daylin, welcome along to your first podcast appearance of the season. How are we?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to have a chat with you guys. I'm sure we'll chew over the action from the weekend, so I think it will be a fantastic chat, hopefully.
Yeah, Matt, I want to come to you in a second, but just to brief everybody on what we're going to have today. It's International Week, so we're doing things slightly differently this week. We are also going to get stuck into our international Celtic 11 and maybe have a little bit of debate about that as well. I'm really looking forward to hearing both of your teams because I've been thinking about my one all weekend and chopping and changing it constantly. But we'll touch on the weekend. 3-1 victory for Celtic over Kilmarnock here at Celtic Park. We were all here at the game, but Matt, you had a very, very different experience at the game when you were here on Saturday. Why don't you explain to the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. So I had a bit of a special day on Saturday. So I've been coming to Celtic Park as a season ticket holder since Martin O'Neill's first season in charge, so you're talking about 22, 23 years here. My dad, however, has been coming to Celtic Park for 50 years. This is his 50th season. So I spoke to my brother, my dad. We go to all the games together. So James, my brother, and I had a conversation. We said, look, we should do something nice for my dad this season. We should maybe try and get some hospitality or something for one of the matches. So I spoke to a few people who I know at the club, and in actual fact I was really fortunate enough to be given 3 boardroom tickets for the match on Saturday. So that meant that we got into the boardroom before and after the game, and it also meant that we got to watch the match from the director's box just over in the south stand. It was an incredible experience. I think my dad still buzzing, still on cloud 9 about it, which is great, but honestly totally unforgettable. What a weekend.
Yeah, and what a victory as well, Daylin. 3-1, I think, in terms of the performance, the actual result, probably doesn't reflect the performance of the match because we were so dominant, had so many chances, and it could have been so much more.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things this season. We've had so many injuries that the Celtic team really have to tick along, just get the results, get the 3 points. You look at that game at Ibrox where just win and we done that, but Saturday was like the first time where you actually saw, probably under Brendan, a really, really good performance. Not to say that there's not been good performances, but one that you walked away going, that was really good today. And the only thing that was really missing was probably more goals, and I think the manager referred to that in his post-match interview. He's spoken about just being a bit more decisive in that final third, making the right decision, and we would get more goals and try and score more goals. And I think, we scored 3 goals on Saturday, but it could have been so much more. And it was a really, really good performance. I know we temporarily moved 10 points clear in the league table, 7 points clear of St Mirren, who were second going into the game on Sunday. So the fans were walking away really, really pleased with that. Matt walked away from the boardroom really, really pleased.
I know.
Not just because of the performance.
Yeah, there's some other reasons for that as well.
But it was really, really excellent. And I know we'll touch on Reo Hatate, Lewis Palma and the likes, but we saw the players really come back to form, especially the likes of Reo. It was a really good performance, Ryan.
Yeah, Matt, from what you can remember about the game, I'm only joking. Really good performance. And we were kind of talking before coming on, probably the best we've seen of Reo Hatate this season as well, would you say?
Certainly. He's looking like he's sort of starting to shift through the gears again. And I think, he's been pretty open about it and said that, he's not maybe reached the heights under Brendan Rodgers as he did under Ange, but I was reading some comments from Brendan about Reo and just about how Brendan has spoken to him one-to-one and made it clear that if Rio's working hard off the ball, that's going to improve his game on the ball as well, because he's not going to have to try and shift pace during the game. He's going to constantly be on it, constantly putting pressure on the opposition. And you've seen that also at the weekend, because his goal was a thing of beauty. To have the presence of mind to shift the ball between his 2 feet, put it through the opponent's legs as well,
incredible,
and then to find the back of the net. It reminded me, I think it was reminiscent of the goal up at Fir Park last season in the Cup, where he does something similar in terms of that quick shift with the ball and finds the back of the net. But having a player like Reo coming back into that full form that we know that he has, it can only be a good thing, because he's a real asset in the middle of the park.
Yeah, he's world class for me. I think Reo Hatate is head and shoulders above most players in this league. He is a terrific footballer, and I spoke to Reo Hatate through a Japanese translator last week for Celtic TV, and he referred to, he's maybe been struggling this season with injury, and he hasn't really shown his best yet. But my word was at a return to form on Saturday.
Definitely.
I think he's got so much about his game, and if Brendan can just unlock those parts of his game, that off the ball working, the conditioning, in the 94th minute you've seen him down the right hand side of the pitch closing the ball down. Usually Reo would maybe come off about 60-70 minutes into the game. He's definitely working on that side of it, and if Brendan can unlock that, what a player Celtic are going to have on their hands.
Well, just you were talking about the sort of conditioning and the fitness, a little bit of insight here from the weekend, because obviously a bit of, what would you say, behind the scenes, backstage access, as it were. So once the sort of game had finished and the fans had sort of made their way out of the stadium, the lap of honour and so on was finished, we were allowed to, my dad, my brother and I were allowed to go down to the touchline, down to the dugout area, and have some photographs taken, which photographs are very good, by the way, I've got to say. They'll be my profile picture on all my social media accounts, that's for sure. But as we were coming through towards the sort of tunnel area, what was striking was that Reo, and as it happens, Daylin as well, were both going through a sort of, I guess it looked like a sort of yoga or Pilates kind of routine, which just goes to show the work that continues to go. And even after, you would think, the players are away up the road after the match or whatever, those guys were there, they were still working, they had done their warm down, now they were doing a full stretches, which just gives you an idea of how important this kind of work is to these guys, and how much they value that fitness and taking care of themselves. And you see the results, like you're saying, Reo still able to be sprinting in the 94th minute. It's invaluable to have that.
I think it's a testament to the mentality of Reo Hatate, and I think he's not alone in that dressing room. There's a few characters in there that go that extra mile after the game, and you touched on Daylin Maeda there. Reo, you've seen the last game here, the TV cameras caught him running around the pitch after the game, barefooted. He's putting that extra effort in to get his conditioning up. That goal, if you just go back to it, it's a majestic bit of skill from Reo Hatate. To drag the ball past the midfielder and drive into the box and slot it away so beautifully, and it's a great celebration to match as well. It's a great knee slide. But he's a fantastic footballer for Celtic, and long may he get better. And because that midfield's free of O'Reilly, Callum, McGregor and Hatate, it's tremendous. And I really do believe we won't really see the best of this Brendan Rodgers team until after Christmas. I think if you look back at the Invincible season, it was after Christmas and the winter training camp that they really came alive and pushed on to create that bit of history. So we're just getting along there. We're getting the players back. Cameron Carter-Vickers back as well at the weekend. So, and I thought he was terrific as well. So it was like Reo was tremendous. Just to come back to your point, Ryan.
It's a perfect way to go into the international break, man. I'm looking forward to this touchline reporter role you've now got. You're getting all the insights down at the dugout.
Well, this is the thing as well, though, because obviously I was sitting over in the south stand, the main stand, on Saturday. So, like I said earlier, I've been coming to Celtic Park as a season ticket holder now for over 20 years. For all but 2 of those seasons, I've sat in the top tier of the Lisbon Lions stand. So usually my view of the game is, from the gods, pretty much. You're watching from away up in the clouds. Yeah. You sort of, there's a lot of tactical geniuses sit up in the top tier, myself included, because you can see everything unfolding, maybe before the players see it on the pitch, just because you've got such an aerial view of the game. But then to be sitting over in the main stand at the weekend, such a different experience because you're so much closer to the action. I was fascinated just to hear some of the shouts from the dugouts. You can even hear some of the players' shouts as well. It was a totally different experience.
Would you move there permanently? Well, I'm maybe
to the director's box.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of people that would do that. But I mean in that area of the stadium, would you move maybe to the south stand for a different view, or do you prefer your seat up?
I do love the seat up in the top tier. You know, and it sort of feels like a sort of home from home almost. Mm-hmm. And I always thought, I will never move. I'll always sort of sit up there. That's where I like to watch the football
but now
from.
You've had a taste of the high life.
Well, now I've had a taste of that high life, absolutely. I'll be putting in a request to move to the south stand immediately, specifically to the director's box and to the boardroom. I'll no longer be joining you up in section 413 of the Lisbon Lions upper. Those days are gone now.
It's funny though, she's just touching on that, how everybody's, obviously you've got your seat, and it becomes like you would never really want to sit anywhere else. Like I've got mates, so I usually sit, my season ticket's in 104 and I'm about 7 or 8 rows up, and I love sitting there. I feel like you're kind of really part of the action, you're close to it. But then if other people come and sit next to me, they're like, oh, I actually don't think you get as good a view because you're quite lower down. Some of my friends sit up in the Docherty, high up, and when I go up there, I don't enjoy sitting there. I feel like I'm really far away from the action. So it's funny how we all have our own little
people
differences.
Get quite defensive over it. They'll argue and die on the hill of their seat, basically.
I totally understand that kind of thing of never wanting to move.
But if it's director's box, then I'll be
exactly.
as well.
Do you experience the padded seats on? It's a totally different experience.
And those was it wee mini pies you said you were getting?
Oh, listen, we can go into the catering at a later date. But yes, the food and drink in the boardroom was second to none at the weekend. A great weekend.
I'm glad the staff there will be happy to hear that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I must say as well, we were just talking about before we came on, the staff, the catering staff, the waiters and so on in the boardroom, to be fair, in every sort of lounge and bar in the stadium, they do a great job.
They're doing God's work, really.
Absolutely. But on Saturday, I've got to give them a shout out from myself and my dad and my brother. They were absolutely exceptional in the boardroom and made for a great afternoon. And of course, the 3-1 victory helped as well.
Yeah, superb. Let's move on to the women's team now, because Matt, we discussed on Friday's podcast about their massive win over Glasgow City on Thursday night. A late goal from Colette Kavanagh to get that 2-1 victory. But what we did say is that it's important when you get a big result like that, is you go into the next game and get another victory. And they didn't just get 3 points, they got 6 goals and a 6-0 win over Motherwell.
Yeah, I mean, that is always the fear, isn't it? You come off the back of a big result, a last-minute winner against Glasgow City. Everybody knew the importance of that game and what it would do to the table as well. There's always that fear that then you go into the next game and there's a little bit of a hangover. You don't quite reach the heights. Yeah. Well, no such fear with this women's team, because like you say, go out against Motherwell at the weekend, 6-0, 4 different goal scorers, and this free scoring form of Fran Alonso's side just continues to grow as well. They're electric to watch this season, and I think certainly in my opinion anyway, as this season progresses, I think we're 9 league games in now. I think as the league campaign is continuing on, the more they're building up wins. It's not just that; the more that they're scoring these goals in games, there's got to be a belief and a confidence growing within that team that they can go all the way this season, which would be wonderful to see.
I think the only blemish for Fran Alonso's side this season is probably the disappointment of the European campaign, and how bitterly disappointing losing to Vålerenga on penalties was. But domestically they've been almost perfect. That result on Thursday night against Glasgow City, so many times Glasgow City's been the stumbling block mentally, and they came over that, and they done it last season as well. But you just feel there's something brewing with this Celtic side under Fran, and he's such a passionate manager that you can only imagine those players are believing off of him as well. And a big game coming up for them. I know they've got Partick Thistle up next in the league, but they've got Rangers on the 22nd of October. It's a double day for the Celts. The men's team going through to Edinburgh for Hearts. Celtic women's team have got Rangers and the Glasgow Derby. So if you can get along and support the girls, absolutely do so. They'll need your support, and if they win that, it's the mentality of that side will only grow in the belief that they can possibly do something special and right the wrongs of last season and maybe bring the title to paradise.
That 22nd of October is going to be a banner day, I think. I'm going to go early 6 points for Celtic that day.
Yeah.
I win at Tynecastle and the women's team will win as
fingers
well.
crossed, Matt.
Absolutely. That's what I'm bold prediction here.
Hey guys, let's get into our international Celtic 11. This is what I'm very excited for. So,
See, this takes me back to school. You know, sitting in class.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and the really boring subjects. Won't name them to offend anyone, but you know, my teachers out there in case they're listening. But you know, you used to pick your teams
Yeah, yeah.
and write them on your jotters.
I think the back of
I
everyone's
don't,
jotter.
I don't even know if kids have jotters now, but you know,
Unsure.
Probably iPads or something.
Yeah,
isn't
man,
it?
I've went old school. I've still got the jotter.
I know. Listen, look, actually, this is the difference. Actually, there.
I see that.
all up here for me,
I
guys.
know.
Yeah.
That's a progression of age.
Actually,
He's really old school. He's just remembered it right off the bat.
right. So, how this is going to work? The rules of it are quite simple. We're going to pick a 1 to 11 of Celtic players that we remember seeing live. We're not going to pick from the current team at this moment in time. And once you pick one nationality, then you cannot pick that nationality again. We're going to have a bit of debate on it. We want you guys at home as well to pick your 11s as well. So get in touch with us on our social media channels, in the comments below, wherever you are, and let us know what your 11s are. And also try and pick out of our three what ones are the best ones. So guys, we kind of have different age groups as we're discussing there.
I mean, you make that sound like I'm really old.
it's only a few years back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm only 31.
Yeah, but there's a few extra players you'll be able to pick
Yeah,
from. So
of
for
course.
me, it's
There's probably an era before you, right?
yeah, it's 2003. I'm going with, which will rule out a couple of players that you guys then might have in your team. Matt, you're about 2000.
Yeah, 2000, 2001 sort
Yeah.
of time I've went for sort of. So we're getting from Martin O'Neill's, you know, era onwards.
Yeah.
So
I'm probably just a bit before. Obviously, I've got Bobby Lennox in my team.
there he goes.
I'm only joking.
Brilliant. Got Jimmy Quinn playing alongside Bobby Lennox there.
Actually, Gallagher up front.
Let's get into it then. So
Wait, hold on a
goalkeeper
minute. Before we get starting
Uh-huh.
here, are we on the same page formation wise? Should
Yeah, I'm a 4-3-3. So despite my age, I've got a very modern
modern
formation.
look? What have you gone for?
I've gone Mike Bassett 4-4-2.
Right, okay.
Well, I should have
Yeah.
the 4-4-2.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, of course, I'm representing the top tier, Lisbon Lions, top tier here with their tactical view in the game. So I've went very tactical here. I've gone for a 3-4-1-2 formation, and I think I'm going to back this team, if I'm going to be honest with
So
you.
you're not just speaking on behalf of yourself, you're speaking on behalf of the whole of your area.
Listen, I'm going to go. Oh, let's do it. I'm going to do it. I'm speaking on behalf of the entire top tier here. 3-4-1-2 I've went for.
Right, let's go for goalkeepers then.
Okay.
Obviously, Daylin, we know you're going to have Ronnie Simpson, but apart from no, I think I'll start off then in goalkeepers, and I'm going to go with our Pole in the goal. It's
Yes.
none other than Artur Boruc.
Yeah.
What a keeper! What memories! Probably at one point one of the best goalkeepers around in Europe.
Yeah. Well, I know I've gone for Arthur as well. He's an iconic figure, isn't he, Arthur Boruc? Over 200 appearances for Celtic, 65 caps for Poland. He's just a totally inimitable character, and so he's in between the sticks for me.
It's a clean sweep round the table. Arthur Boruc for me,
Yep.
got Poland nationality, a terrific goalkeeper and a personality to match. You know, he was such a cult figure,
Yeah.
and so many cult figures around Celtic folklore and history. They don't have the quality to match it, but
Yeah.
Arthur Boruc did, and I think we spoke about it off there, but that penalty against
That's
Dundee
right,
United,
yeah.
it was
He
incredible.
could save the man scoring.
Yeah.
By the way, what a penalty it is.
You just think though, if we're ever struggling in a game, why didn't we never just stick him up front,
Stick him up
David
there.
James style?
Yeah. No, it's a brilliant penalty. He stuck it right in the top corner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What it was Dundee United we were saying there, wasn't
It
it?
was the League Cup of 2009-10
Right.
season, I think.
2008,
8-9, yeah,
Ah.
sorry. My years mixed up.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's your age. It's just again to you, mate. It's
Right, a nice clean sweep there then. So obviously we've got different systems.
Yes.
So
What-
why don't should we just go through, should I go through my back four and then you go through your defence? And
Yeah, let's
go
do it
after
like
that.
that. Yeah.
Right, so for right back for me, I've went for a Frenchman there, and it's none other than Didier Agathe.
Brilliant.
Signed in the year 2000 through to 2006. £50,000 he signed
He was a striker as well. But
a striker at Hibs before that.
That's right.
I actually kind of forget he played for Hibs because he was only there for like 7 games or something, like 6 or 7 games.
Right.
And he signed for us in the October period. Before that time, there wasn't the transfer window where it was only summer and the winter. But one of the fastest players I think I've ever seen at Celtic Park. Some amazing moments. Remember the goal against Ajax in Amsterdam Arena. I just loved him as a player. I thought he was tremendous.
I've met Didi a couple of times, and he's a great character. In fact, I think I met him a good few years ago, back when I was working with the stadium tours department, and he brought in a sort of group of kids that he was working with in France, sort of impoverished youth, and he set up sort of football clubs and so on over in France. So he was bringing some of these kids into Celtic Park, and the other sort of little trip to Scotland. The pride though that he had just to be showing these kids around about Celtic Park and telling them the stories from his time. A great guy, and he's doing great work as well with his charities. I mean, what a player, really.
Yeah, he was a real speedster. Absolutely terrific player. A great guy as well. I met him a few times doing around the tours as well. Met him funnily enough on my 14th birthday. I came on the tour, and we go out, me and my friends, my mum were here, and I got my picture taken with him. I wish I could dig it out, but I think it's lost now. It's gone.
Did you get the memory of it?
I just remember the tracksuit that I had on at the time. I was kitted out. It was great.
Superb.
14th birthday. So that was 1974.
I knew it was coming.
Right, so that's. I'll just run through the other 3 defenders then,
go for it.
and then we'll go for it. So centre back, representing the Netherlands, is none other than Virgil van Dijk, who's one of the best centre backs in the world at this moment in time. Which is it's crazy to think that one of the best centre halves of the 21st century era. And he played here at Celtic Park, and he absolutely strolled it when he was here. Just would skin the whole park, score goals, could hit free kicks, but also real solid defender. And I'll just run through the other 2 and I'll let you guys jump in. I've also gone with Christopher Ayer at centre half from Norway. Of course, won so much here, was part of. It wasn't part of the first real season under Brendan Rodgers, the treble. I think he was out on loan at Kilmarnock, but then won another 3 trebles thereafter that. And then at left back, I've went for Emilio Izaguirre from Honduras. Like, he was here for Celtic for so long, but even just for that first season, he was electric and won Player of the Year in Scotland that season. So that is my very
attacking defence.
A lot of running in there, running forward.
It's an oxymoron, isn't it?
I know. If I was a manager of it, I'd really need to try and pull some incredible skills of man management to make sure they're all working in harmony and synchronising.
What would have been great if you told them all, do not cross the halfway line.
I don't know if they'd listen to it.
Okay, so I've got a back 3. I'm
okay,
for three big centres in my defence here. So I've also got Virgil van Dijk, the Netherlands represented. We know his quality. We're just talking. You're just talking about it there, mentioning it. He could defend well, but also he could hit a dead ball, could score. Great player. In the centre of my defence, I've got Bobo Balde.
Bobo's going to get you.
Bobo was born in Marseille in France, but he represented Guinea at international level. So, as it happens, I don't have any other French players or any other players from Guinea in the team, so either one of those would be fine. Bobo, though, iconic, robust. When I say robust, that's probably the understatement of the century.
That's a polite way of putting it.
I mean, the man was an absolute unit.
Strike fear in any striker with those big, massive, was it like Valve Sports or something he'd wear? Or studs.
Doc Martens with studs on. And beside Bobo, I've got Yus Valhaeren as well from that sort of Matt O'Neill team. Yus from Belgium, a cracking big player, left-sided, scored against Juve as well in the Champions League here. So yeah, that's my back 3.
Oh, lovely.
My back 4 will be Andreas Hinkel for the right back position, gets that German nationality.
Yep.
Bobo Balde as well, Matt. I've also went down that road. I've actually, funnily enough, totally forgot about Virgil van Dijk, which is really staggering, which is a shame. But we moved.
Got a soft spot for Liverpool as well.
Yeah, well, I know, and I've totally forgotten about him, but it's incredible. But we move. I've also got Yus Valhaeren to complete the centre back pairing. Actually, I don't know if they ever played as a back for the guys, but I'm willing to see how it would work.
Yeah.
So we'll go that way. And to complete the back 4, I've went for a loose cannon, a bit of fire. a bit of debate, obviously, with Bobo being the French-born. But I've went France for my left back, and Stefan Maher.
Oh, nice choice.
Yeah.
Nice. You're utilising the extra years that you have on us there.
Yeah.
Stefan Maher played in the 6-2 game, is that right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, he had his moments.
Yeah.
But I think he was a good, solid player for Celtic. You know, he was a good left back. But I think you have to have those characters in your team, especially when you go into games where, you know, there's derbies.
You're really thinking about this,
yeah. I'm willing to go with it. Stefan Maher would be a guy that just that bit of fire, but he could get you a red card.
Yeah.
So it's
there's a good balance to your defence there, I've got to say.
You've really got 3 big guys, don't you, in yours, Matt?
3 big units. You try and get by them, honestly. Well, to be fair, I want to see who you've actually got as your forwards, because you know it depends who you've got up front and stuff like that.
This is a difficulty with this team, because, you know, for me, if I was to look at the left backs at Celtic, you know, Kieran Tierney is one that stands out, but then you'd be using that Scottish quota and you might want to use it elsewhere. So, and again, at right back, Mika Lustig was here for so long, such an incredible player for Celtic, but
what, you're saving your Swedish
I might for John Guidetti.
I might just Freddie Lundberg on the wing. I'm going to forget it.
Stop looking at my team, man, for goodness.
Mo Bangura as well. No disrespect, obviously.
Let's go into our midfields then. Why don't we start round the other side? Daylin, why don't you kick us off?
I went for a 3 in midfield. I'm using my Scottish representation. Probably captain the side as well. We'll go with Scott Brown. And there, captain, leader, legend from his time. You know, so 22 trophies I think he won. I think he won more. Maybe not now, but when he left Celtic, he'd won more trophies than PSG did in the 21st century.
Wow.
So I don't know if that. Don't quote me on that. But I think I seen that floating around at the time.
If that's true, that's a great stat.
I think that might be right. But at the time, it could have been, but maybe not now. But I'll go with him, and then in front of him, I'll go with 2 midfielders. Both of them wore the 25 jersey for Celtic. Slovakia's Lubomir Moravcik. And on the other side, I think you probably would look at him as a winger, but I think he in the modern day would be in a 3, and it's Japan's Shunsuke Nakamura.
That is a great midfield. A lot of magic in there.
I think as well you've got the craft, the creativity, but you've got Scott Brown in there to anchor it. Yep. So I think that's how I would roll.
Well, I've got 4 in the middle of the pitch, and I've also sort of tried to go for that balance of having a bit of steel in the middle, but also a bit of magic in there. So in the middle of the pitch, for me, I've got Scotland represented, and he'll be my captain of this team. It's Paul Lambert, Champions League winner with Borussia Dortmund, comes to Celtic, captain Celtic in a treble-winning season. Just what a player Paul Lambert was, you know, and some of the goals that Paul scored for Celtic, out of this world. Beside Paul, I've got Ireland represented here, a guy who I loved as a player when I was growing up, and even now as a pundit, I think he's great value. He was only here at Celtic for a short period of time, but Ireland are represented in the form of Roy Keane in the middle of the pitch, alongside Paul Lambert. And now, in terms of my wide men here, I've got Alan Thompson representing England, and I've also got the man from Slovakia, Lubomir Moravcik. Now, I was going to say, you know, what side did he play on? Lubo, to be fair, didn't really matter, because let's not get into the debate of was he left-footed or right-footed, because I don't think anybody genuinely knows.
One of the things that I love about Lubomir Moravcik, right, is when he took a corner kick and he would take the corner with an outswinger of his left foot and then go over to the other side and take an outswinger with his right foot. Just depends how he felt in that moment.
And score from it as well.
Whereas most people would usually go for the inswinger, but I'll do the outswinger. He was just...
It's always that eternal thing, isn't it? Well, Celtic supporters have been talking about it for 20 years. If only we could have got him earlier.
The thing is, I think if we had got him... Say nowadays, Lobo plays in Ligue 1 in France... Celtic would never get him now, I don't think, because social media and videos, there's not. I think I heard, you know, our former manager Ange Postecoglou talking recently. There's no unknown player out there nowadays, whereas you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Lubo was an unknown quantity. and you know he was bossing a league that had Zinedine Zidane in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredible. But if only we had got him earlier. Can you imagine the midfield of McStay with Moravchik in that time? It would have
brilliant.
been,
He was a little genius, so he absolutely had to be make it into my team. But I'm interested to hear. You've gone for it's a 4-4-2, so you've got 4 in the middle.
Yeah. So the difficult thing for me is that I'm going from really kind of like 2003, that Seville team in UEFA Cup final. So Liverpool doesn't get in just because of that, because I've got like memories of like it's that way that do you remember your memories, or do you just remember like videos and things that you hear from people? But
it's a bit of a Mandela effect.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You know. So I'm just going to rule Liverpool out just to be in the safe side with that. But my midfield, I've also went for Nakamura on the right hand side. I just fell in love with Nakamura. I really properly started coming to the games like regularly in 2005, so the season that he signed for Celtic. And I was just like awestruck at the games when you'd sit and watching him play. He just, the things he could do with a ball was just absolutely incredible as well. And he was so like lightweight in terms of so slight, but also so powerful as well.
Yeah.
Like nobody could ever get the ball off him. So he definitely is in there for me, and also for some of his amazing big massive moments.
Yeah.
I've went for Scott Brown as well for Scotland in the middle of the park. I mean, again, you know, I was actually, you know, debating between Scott and Paul, because with Paul Lambert, who we might be getting on the podcast very soon.
Well, I'll be grassing you into Paul Lambert that you didn't pick him in your team. I've got to tell you that.
Yeah, I'll sit out that one.
You to do the
interview. But when Paul signed for Celtic, I mean, I don't remember him signing, but when you hear the stories, he'd just come off the back of winning the European Cup with Borussia Dortmund, and I think he probably really could have went anywhere in Europe. He was that good at the time, and he came to Celtic and was an incredible player. But yes, Scott Brown, as you mentioned, Daylin, I don't think we need to go into him too much more. Alongside him in the centre of the park, and I think they would have worked really well together, I went for Bulgaria's Stilian Petrov, who was just an absolute phenomenon as a player. Signed in just before Martin O'Neill, wasn't it? 1999 he signed for Celtic.
Yeah, I think he signed under John Barnes.
Yeah, I think so.
Along with the likes of Oliver Tebele.
He
was a great player, Stilian Petrov. I see a lot of Reo Hatate Stilian and Reo Hatate. I just feel that there's elements. If Reo can just go get more goals, he would almost be like the second coming of Stilian Petrov. It's
a really good shout. Over 300 games, 64 goals. I've got down here, won so many trophies. Player of the Year for Celtic 2005. Absolutely loved him as a player. And then on the left hand side of the midfield, I've went for Ireland's Aidan McGeady on that side, who academy graduate, one of the most talented and skillful players I think I've ever seen at this club. I thought he was exceptional, the things that he could do with the ball. Even, I know his debut was at Tynecastle, but I think his European debut was here against AC Milan, and he ran them absolutely ragged on that. I can't remember if that was his debut, but he was still only a teenager and ran this amazing AC Milan defence absolutely ragged. So for me, he's in my team.
He was such an exciting player, Aidan McGeady.
I think it's a real testament to the academy that they brought through Aidan. He's still playing. I think he's down in Ayr United now, technical director, I think, as well.
I think he's a technical director.
So, he's a really terrific player. He also, I'll now move on to my forward line.
Go for it.
My front three, Aidan makes on the right side. I think he traditionally played on the left for Celtic, but I'm going to move him onto the right, get down the right hand side. He makes up my right wing. On the left wing, I've got England represented and Scott Sinclair.
Oh, good shout.
I think his goals here.
He's electric. That first season, especially.
He had a great song as well.
Yeah,
the fans sung for him. He was fantastic for Celtic in those years under Brendan. You know, that debut at Hearts, he signs in the morning, comes off the bench and scores. Brendan running down the touchline celebrating. They're fantastic memories, and I think he's just a goal scorer as well. I think you see with Reo Hatate how he can get in between the sticks. Scott Sinclair was similar, and he had a goal from outside the box as well. So he
a bit underappreciated, maybe.
I think, you know, in the last season or so, he kind of came out the team when Neil became the manager. But he was, that first season,
that was
25
electric.
Goals, I think, in the first season under Brendan. Tremendous signing. A real impact signing as well. I'll let you carry on. I'll save my last one.
Yeah.
Well, I've obviously got a player just in front of the midfield, but I'll include him in my forward line here. So I've also got Stilian Petrov in my team. He's playing just in front of the midfield. Great talent. We've obviously touched on it. A great creative talent, and I knew the way to go as well. And one of my two forwards is the Celtic Dragon himself, Big John Hartson, who I just adored when he played for Celtic. He actually scored one of my favourite goals during my lifetime supporting Celtic, which was down at Anfield. That goal in the quarter-final of the UEFA Cup in the second leg. The presence of mind just to let it drift outside of his right foot and then cut across it and put it in the top corner.
Something that amazes me about that goal is the swerve on it. You can actually see where he cuts right across the ball. And it flies past Jersey Dudek. And as well, the testament to the Celtic supporters back then, that's what the Liverpool fans called the Annie Road end. You know, it's getting developed now, it further expanded, but there's Celtic fans all down that end. It's not just in the away section. You imagine looking at Anfield that night, that stand in that stadium would have been littered with Celtic fans, the green and white jerseys all over in the Kop and the Kenny Dalglish stand, as it's now known. I bet you they were everywhere, but that swerve is just phenomenal. I think a great goal. I think he grew up supporting Liverpool, and Swansea were his teams, so I might be wrong there, but I think that goal means a lot to John Hartson as well.
I think if you were to put a speedometer on that
ball
to see how fast it was going as it hit the back of the net, and we're touching on like Reo Hatate's celebration in the knee slide. John Hartson did do a knee slide in that, but it's just it's kind of such an iconic celebration because you can see how much it means to him as he's running over to those Celtic fans that are just going absolutely berserk in the away end.
It's great to watch that, the scenes in the sort of away end, as it were. Celtic fans just piling down towards to try and you know, get a hold of him and celebrate.
There's a guy with dyed
green hair, that's right.
I don't know who that supporter is. I'd love to speak to him just to see why.
If you're listening, get in touch.
Why was your hair that colour? But it's a great goal. It's a phenomenal strike, and I think as well, you know, you look at I don't know if there's a snobbery from the English sides now of Scottish. There probably is of Scottish football, but it might have been there back then. But there was that. I know when the Blackburn Rovers game happened, there was that. You know, there was that needle, and I think when John scores that goal, it sends Celtic through. And you know, you've came over a top English side. That then 2 years later, the main part of that team went on to win the UEFA Champions League.
And just, we'll obviously move on, but just since we're on the subject of that that match against Liverpool, I've heard from a couple of ex-players who played in that team that night, Martin O'Neill, his team talk before the match has become sort of famous amongst those players. I've never ever found out what exactly was said, but pretty much in European matches, you know, the timing's very important. You have to be out the tunnel by a certain time. You have to be lined up for photographs by a certain time. So it was no different for this match. So the referee was coming to the dressing room door because the Celtic team were running sort of late to come out. And Martin O'Neill had said to John Clark, who was working as part of the sort of staff at that point in time, Lisbon line, John Clark as the kit man, he said to John just to hold the door shut, to keep the referee out, because Martin was about to give his team talk. And whatever he said to the players has obviously stuck with them all of these years, but obviously went and drove them on that night, and we go out and win 2-0. Alan Thompson
I tell you what,
scores the opener that night.
I know, sorry to cut you off there, Matt, but you see these All or Nothing documentaries on Amazon now. Can you imagine an All or Nothing for that season, and you could actually hear Martin deliver that team talk.
That'd be brilliant.
Sorry to cut you
off. No, not at all.
there.
No, I just was reflecting on this. It's just weird how you look back on the teams that you grew up watching and how, because I'm looking at it, Baldy, Valhaeren, Lambert, Lubo, Alan Thompson, Petrov, Hartson. It's pretty much I've got a team
Basically
here.
Martin
I've got
O'Neill's
a team
team.
full of Martin's players here, but we'll come to the
You've
final.
got his
man.
formation
Yeah.
as well.
But another player that has not been mentioned there, that's also part of Martin O'Neill's team, is in my forward line, and it's Chris Sutton.
Oh, nice.
Up front, because I mean, again, we all know what he done as a player for us. Again, you know, came to the club as a Premier League winner with Blackburn Rovers, part of that incredible striking partnership with Alan Shearer at Blackburn, and was, you know, one of the best strikers around in England at that moment in time. Comes up to Celtic, delivers the goods there as well. He could slot in a midfield and in defence. And the reason I've just went for, because you actually look at the goal record, John Hartson scored over 100 goals for Celtic. I think Chris Sutton was in about 80 odd.
Yeah.
But it's because the other man that's in my starting 11, and I'm sure it's the same with both of yours, Henrik Larsson, he always said that Chris Sutton was his favourite strike partner. So I'm keeping Henrik happy, and I'm assuming, guys, you also have Henrik in the starting 11.
It's a clean sweep for Sweden there. You know, you talked about Nakamura being your guy. Henrik was my guy. Growing up, he was the posters on the wall. He was the king of kings. The kids will never know how good this guy was.
Streets will not forget.
No, they won't. There's such. I love that debate. Well, who's the best since Henrik? Because, you know, every time we get a really, really good striker, that debate comes back up. So we've got Kyogo now, and that everybody is talking about that. And for me, probably, I would say Kyogo is. But, you know, you had Odsonne and you had Moussa here as well. Henrik was his levels. And these guys are really good, don't get me wrong, but Henrik was the big games, the big moments, the derbies, the goals he scored, the chip, the iconic chip over Stefan Klos. But not just that, there was a free each derby here, and Matt, I'm sure you'll know it. Like the goal he scores in that game, and he takes it with 1 foot, swivels and puts it in the top corner. He could head the ball, he could dribble, he could score from distance, a free kick, he had it all. £650,000 from Feyenoord.
It's a bargain of the century.
I think we always, you know, we've got Feyenoord currently in the Champions League, and like we've said bargain of the century. What were they thinking?
I know, it's a daylight robbery, really, isn't it? No, but I mean, like, there's no team, there's no time that I've ever done anything like this. You know, put together your favourite Celtic 11. There's no chance that Henrik wouldn't be in my lineup.
European Golden Boot at Celtic, and just playing in Scotland, where I think the points work different, where you get less points playing in Scotland than you'd wear if you played in England or Spain or whatever.
Remarkable.
But he's just such a special talent. I'm just like, you know, that we were saying there, he's your guy. Like, I feel the same way. I was during the lockdown a few years ago. I was clearing out a couple of like cupboards in my room, and I uncovered a box which had all my old Celtic tops from when I was a wee boy. Must have been about 4 or 5 jerseys in there. Every single one of them, Larsson 7 on the back.
See, kids, you see them around the stadium on a match day. They've got Kyogo 8, and like he has that profound impact on children coming to Celtic Park in a match day. But Henrik was our guy on the back of our tops, and you know, I've met Henrik a couple of times working at Celtic. I've actually, in my first few months here, I managed to interview him in the tunnel. It was Henrik's Heroes versus Rebels Legends. And I had to pinch myself. I was talking to the King of Kings, and he's such a reserved guy that, you know, the personality doesn't quite match the icon, but he will forever be the hero, the legend. Like, nobody will ever come close. I'm 31 years old now, and Henrik Larsson is still my favourite ever Celtic player.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
No, you're definitely not. And I think we definitely probably should save some stuff and do like a Henrik Larsson special.
Let's do a Henrik Larsson episode, 100%.
Try and get him on. He's a hard man to get, but if you're watching Henrik, come on.
I'm sure you are, of course. Then we'd love to do something like that and just go through all his memories, because you could probably have a series of podcasts just all about that man. Right, so that concludes the teams.
Good
guys.
teams, by the way. Good teams, I think.
3 good teams. Is there anything, are we looking at anyone's teams and thinking, I'd quite like a look at that player?
I think for me, the omission of Virgil van Dijk is a shocker, but I'm willing to stick by my defence. I've picked them. I've bought the guys in the window. I'm going to back them.
Well, I'm looking at it and thinking, Nakamura is in both of your teams, that's right?
Yeah.
Naka is the only one I'm looking at and thinking, kind of, should I have had him in the team? And I'm looking at mine, the person I'd probably need to move, I'd probably need to put Naka in the middle and put Roy Keane on the bench, but I'm not going to do that.
How do you think Roy Keane's going to take me?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He's staying in the team. Roy's staying in.
He'd be managing the team. The bench. Matt would be out.
But I'm happy enough. I'm happy enough with the team.
I would. The only one for me, I mean, he doesn't kind of qualify in my list just because of the time cap I put on it, but it would definitely be Lubo Maracic. But maybe also, I love Bobo Baldi so much, and I'm looking at it and thinking, should I have had him in? Maybe I could have him in alongside Virgil just to make sure there's definitely somebody there at the back that's not going to be known for.
Notable mentions, I think Fraser Forster as well.
That's
right.
I know.
I wish there was a way that we could see how these teams would fare against one another.
AI generated.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I think we'll have to just hand it to our listeners or viewers to sort of leave comments in the comment section.
Yeah.
Just
So whose team would win, do you think?
Yeah.
That's
Get in the comments and let us know.
Why don't we run through them then one last time, our teams.
Okay, so I am Artur Boruc from Poland, Didier Agat from France, Virgil van Dijk from Netherlands, Chris Ayer from Norway, Emilio Izagiri from Honduras, Shunsuke Nakamura from Japan, Scott Brown from Scotland, got Aidan McGiddy on the wing from Ireland, and Stan Petrov also in the centre of the park from Bulgaria, and I've got Henrik Larsson and Chris Sutton up front.
Very good. So I've got Artur Boruc in goals from Poland, the back three of Virgil van Dijk, the Netherlands, Bobo Baldi, Guinea of France, Yus Valgaeren from Belgium. In the middle of the park, my midfield four is Paul Lambert from Scotland and Roy Keane from Ireland in the middle. And on wings we have Lubomir Moravcik from Slovakia and Alan Thompson from England. Just in front of that midfield four, we've got Stilian Petrov from Bulgaria. And up top, we've got John Hartson from Wales and Henrik Larsson from Sweden.
So I've got Artur Boruc from Poland, at right back Andreas Hinkel from Germany. We have Bobo Baldi from Guinea, Yus Valgaeren from Belgium, Stefan Mahe from France, Scott Brown from Scotland, Shunsuke Nakamura from Japan, Lubomir Moravcik from Slovakia. On the wing, Scott Sinclair from England, Aidan McGiddy from the Republic of Ireland, and up top from Sweden, Henrik Larsson.
Three very strong teams.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we'd love to actually hear. We'd love to hear the viewers' teams as well,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it's fun. We've only really all agreed on Artur Boruc and Henrik Larsson, haven't we? Is that right?
I
think for all three of us.
I think so.
I
That'd
think
be right,
so.
yeah.
Which is quite funny, isn't it? When, we're all kind of from similar age ranges, and we've still got.
They were the non-negotiables.
We've still
definitely.
got completely separate teams, so it'll be interesting to hear what other people would pick, particularly people with longer memories of Celtic.
Yeah.
That have got memories in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s.
It would be hard though, because the nationalities of the team were more condensed back then, so it would have been harder to pick a team.
If you've got memories of the 60s and you had to pick one Scotland player, and you've got the whole Lisbon Lions, you've got the 70s Dalglish, you've got all of that to pick from, Paul McStay's, everybody. That's an impossible task.
I think you're going to see a few teams coming through here with a Scottish representative being Danny McGrain as well.
Of course, yeah.
Who's of course an iconic
too many
player.
I know.
Just talking about the international duty before we wrap up, guys. Obviously, I think best of luck to Scotland,
Yep.
who are going away to Spain on Thursday night. Thursday night. Not a win just not only qualifies, but they can top the group, which is quite remarkable. So I know Callum and Greg are away with the squad, and if they can get to Germany, that's a great thing for the club to have two players playing in the European Championship next summer.
Very good. Yeah, all to look forward to then on Thursday for the Scotland team, and definitely get in touch with us. Have a bit of debate, see whose team would win. Get in touch with your team as well, and make sure you like and subscribe to the official Celtic FC podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Get in touch with us on social media as well. We would love to hear your thoughts. We'll be back on Friday with a potentially very special guest that's going to be joining us for that episode, so do join us then. But for now, thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Matt and Daylin, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to hear about Matt's boardroom.
Yes, I know. I think we'll be in a queue now, won't we, to get in that boardroom alongside everybody else. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. Do join us again on Friday, and we'll hear from you very soon. Hail, hail.